Dump and go type recipes are the kind of recipes where you just add all the ingredients into an Instant Pot or a slow cooker and you just set it and forget it. And while that is very convenient and really nice in some instances, I'm gonna be honest, I will be the very first person to tell you those are like my least favorite type of recipes. For me, it just takes kind of the joy and the art and the enjoyment out of food and cooking. And I think that the flavors are just not, they just have so much more potential if you just do a couple things to make them better. So this video, I hope to teach you a couple things that might take just a tiny bit extra time, but that will make your dump and go type recipes way, way better, I promise. The first thing that you can do to make your dump and go type recipes is to always sear the protein. Searing your main protein or even cooking ground beef beforehand before you add a hunk of raw ground beef to your slow cooker or your Instant Pot will caramelize that meat and the texture, so then you will have just a layer of flavor that would be impossible to get otherwise. Does this method take a little bit of extra time? Yes, but I did warn you, and it's just something that will take an extra 5-10 minutes and will make a huge difference in the final dish. Next is when you add herbs, spices, flavorings, whatever to your dump and go dishes, usually you just add them all in at the beginning of the cooking. If you add or reserve some of those extra spices to the very end, that will enhance the flavor so much more. When you cook with those herbs and spices and seasonings, during the cooking process, they can kind of like dampen a little bit. So if you add some freshness to the very end of your dish by adding just a little bit of extra cumin or paprika or salt, just something a little bit extra at the very end, that will kind of re-brighten up those flavors right at the end before you eat it. Along with that, if there's ever a way that you can add fresh herbs or even a fresh element to the finished dish, that will make a huge difference. A lot of times when you do those like all-in-one cooking meals, everything kind of has a similar flavor and a similar texture. So if you can add something like even some chopped green onions, some chopped parsley, some fresh basil, something fresh on top will make a massive difference. Next, please use a high quality broth or liquid when you're making these all-in-one meals. I find that using bouillon powder is kind of like the lowest rung on the totem pole of ways that you add flavor and depth to your finished meal. Bouillon powder is very convenient. However, if you can use something better like a bone broth that has a really high quality like flavor profile, or you can use something like better than bouillon, then that will add way better flavor because that is the liquid that is cooking the rest of your food. So if you start with a really good base of a really good flavorful liquid, then that will make your finished dish so much better. Next, saute your aromatics. Again, this is something that takes a little bit of extra time, but if you're already searing your meat, like a pot roast, a chicken breast, a pork tenderloin, use that cooking fond, like the fond on the bottom of your pan, and saute your aromatics for just a couple minutes before you dump them all into your Instant Pot or dump them into the slow cooker. By aromatics, I mean like your mirepoix, your vegetables, onions, garlic, rice, anything that you kind of add with your main dish. Try and saute those and just get a little bit of caramelization on those, and that will make a massive difference in your final dish as well. Next, be adventurous in adding just something else to complement the flavor profile of your dish. For example, if you're making a soup, instead of just doing a chili, why don't you try and add something a little sweet at the very end, like a drizzle of honey? Or if you're making something just normal, savory, you can add a little bit of like chili crunch or something spicy, a little bit of acid, or some fresh lemon at the very end. That kind of brightens up the dish and makes it feel more fresh rather than just something you dumped into a slow cooker and it cooked all day. Next is add texture. This is something that I think makes a really big difference in these dump and go type of dishes that everything's kind of mushy in some ways, is to add just something a little bit crispy or crunchy at the very end. So you can do like some chopped nuts, some chopped peanuts, some crispy fried onion strings, or some sesame seeds, some fresh crunchy green onions, or some fresh chives. Anything that adds a little bit of texture to the very end will really enhance the entire dish, because I think a great dish should have a little bit of acid. It should have something savory, a little sweet, a little crunchy, a little soft, and all of those elements really do bring a massive difference when you're enjoying a meal. Next, a great way to enhance these dump and go type recipes is to add fresh sides. If you have something that's been cooking all day and it kind of all tastes the same and has similar textures, then add something fresh like fresh vegetables, like a crudité, or even steamed vegetables in the microwave make a really big difference. You can also serve with fresh fruit or a salad, just something to contrast something that has been cooking a long time. Like I said, I always feel like these types of dishes are a little bit like mushy. So if you can find something that contrasts that in flavor, in texture, in temperature, that makes a really great way to enhance and kind of make that dinner different. Next is to think about your garnishes. So instead of adding everything to the pot, maybe try and think of ways that you can add some of those elements a little bit later to enhance the dish rather than just dump everything. For example, if you have a type of dump and go recipe where you add like the cheese and the rice and the vegetables and the meat all together, maybe what you could do is reserve that cheese so then you can melt the cheese on top after you've served it. That's going to give a slightly different texture to the cheese and the final dish. It's not going to be mixed in, it's going to be melted on top. So small touches like that can really make a dish different without really changing the integrity of the dish. Last is to season before you eat. This should be very obvious and I hope routine in your cooking, but dump and go type recipes is like 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, 1 can of this, 1 can of that. But at the very end, taste it and adjust it to your needs. You can always feel free to kind of go rogue off of the recipe and make it yours. I get a lot of comments sometimes that says things like, I don't like carrots. Can I still make this recipe? Of course, unless it's like my carrot cake recipe, you can omit carrots and just like use something else. Use some bell peppers or use a different root vegetable. It's totally fine to make things to your taste and what your family likes, because after all, that is your dinner and you should enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you like it, make sure to watch this one next and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, bye.